Now, this, just so you know what I'm about to show you, you can do it or not do it. This is not a big thing, but some older movies in their poster, they don't have the title in it. You know what I'm saying? They have a picture, but no title. So just to be sure, I'm going to come in here, and where we put the image, underneath it, I'm just going to put in an H3 tag. And I'm going to say, where are my notes here? It should be just movie.title. Like that. So I added this line right here. It's not that you have to do that. Like I said, today virtually all of them have that in. But putting that in and saving, going back, it should still be saying, yeah, compiling successfully, that's good. But now if I come back to here, and I again type in, let's try Lord of the Rings. And I click search. Now notice I got the title at the bottom. If that's too big, you know, I made it an H3, make it an H4 or H5, or make it a paragraph and bold it, whatever you want to do. All right, I'm expecting that you're going to come in here and find a cool font, neat colors, you know, etc., that kind of thing. All right. Now, you may or may not ask, but okay, so again, how do I know? Poster, title, how do I even know about these? Well, what I did earlier, you don't have to do this, but I did this already, is I did a screen dump of everything that was in there. So this is most of everything that's in there. When we go to the details page, we're not on the details page now. But when we go to the details page, you're going to figure out what you want to put in here. All right? I mean, probably at a minimum, you'll want things like the title. All right? But what else do you want? Do you want, the plot. Do you want the plot? Yes, no, whatever. Do you want the poster again? Do you want the rating? Do you want when it came out on DVD? Do you want how much money it made? Because there's something in here that's got that. All right? So you're going to figure out exactly what you want to put in there is what I'm telling you. Okay. All right, then let's continue on. All right. Now, if you remember, yesterday I gave you a bunch of links that you may or may not have looked at. All right? But it was for React Router DOM. And what React Router DOM is going to allow us to do is go from one page to the other. All right? And we're going to put that in now. But, okay, over the last couple versions, or really I think the last version of this, React Router changed. I'm doing this based off of an internet presentation that I saw, okay? And they must have been using an older version. So when we're about to come in here right now, and we're about to install React Router DOM, but we're going to install an older version. The newer version is beta, all right? Which means they're making some changes, and it's not exactly what I'd call fantastic. So we're going to use the most tried and true one that's still out there. So, as always, what I would like you to do is to stop your program run, and we're going to do an npm I for install React-router-DOM. Now, normally we'd hit enter. Don't do that. We want to tell it to install an earlier version. The current version is 6.0, and it's a beta version. We're going to put an @ in here and put 5.20, which means that's the version that we want in here. That's another problem that I had yesterday. And when we were going through the example, is I was using version 6 instead of version 5.2. All right, then you can hit enter. So you saw how fast that came up. And again, as always, now if I go back in and take a look in my package.json, all right, well, that's neat, it's not showing in there. Oh, and I shouldn't have done that with mine, but let's see. Let's try it again. Let's see if it's giving me an error or not. Yeah, it is. Why is it giving me an error? No target, unless I put it, well, let's see. Of course, I didn't write that down. That is fan-friggin-tastic. So let's see, maybe I gave you the wrong version. I don't think I did though, but we're going to find out right now. Let's see. Let me Google. If this works, then I'll just bring up the command for everybody. So it looks like it did. All right. So that's, I guess, it wanted the whole word install and it didn't want the 0 on the end. All right, that appears to have worked okay. So npm space install space react hyphen router hyphen dom @ 5.2.
It does work with just the I for install.
Okay.
It just doesn't like the 0.
All
I
right.
think it's 5.2.0, if there's no 5.20.
That's probably, you're right, because it is, you're right. And actually, if I'd have put 5.2.0, yeah, I could have put as many zeros as I wanted. You are correct. All right, so let's clear that. And I can actually start my run again. It's not going to hurt anything. I should not have done anything that's going to make the program blow up. All right. So I should not get any error warning here. I'm not saying I won't. Good. All right, good. And now I can go back and look in my package.json, and there it is. Actually, it put in 5.2.1, so there were a couple things that were wrong with that. All right, so I'm just going to leave it just like that. Hopefully it's going to work just fine. I think it should have been 5.2.0, but I don't think this is going to hurt anything. We'll know real fast. If we have to, we'll uninstall it and we'll install 5.2.0. All right? Okay, but I don't think it's going to matter. We'll know very quickly. How's that? All right. Now, I want you to go back to your index.js file right here. We're going to start making some changes in here momentarily. All right, we're going to about double the size of this in just a couple minutes. All right. Now, we could do this now. We already have a page called Movie Details. I think everybody'd agree. There's nothing in it yet, but it's okay. I'm going to grab this line of code right here. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to paste it right underneath, and I'm going to change this to Movie Details, and I'm going to change this to Movie Details. And again, because of the fact there's nothing in there yet, and we're not referencing it anywhere in our program, mine is all grayed out. That's totally fine. All right? Okay. Now, what you have to put in for this is hinky. I spent an hour on this last night. That's why I eventually went down to an earlier version, because I couldn't get it to work with their beta version. I was Googling stuff. I was on Stack Overflow. And, there must have been 20 people. That was the most up-to-date Stack Overflows I'd seen. 2 to 4 months old, and people, do this, do this. I tried everything I could see that they put on there. Nothing worked. So one person said, I couldn't get this to work, so I just went back and reverted to an earlier version, and it worked fine. I thought, okay, I can try that, and then it did work. All right. So in here, all right, I want to type in this, import. And it looks a little weird, but we're going to bring in 3 different things here. Browser, router, switch, and route. We're going to bring in those 3 things from React.router, not dot, React-router-dom, like that. And again, you'll notice it's grayed out because we're going to use those down here in just a moment. All right? All right, we talked yesterday about what strict mode is rather, so I'm not going to say that anymore. I think, if you want more, just go to the documentation. It does provide some extra error checking, okay? All right, so inside of here, we're going to be putting some stuff in right now. And the stuff that we put in, this is what's going to be surrounding it, all right? What I mean is we're going to put in 2 lines, then have this, then the 2 ending lines for what we're about to put in. If you say I don't get it, just give me a second and we'll have it all put in, okay? All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say this. Browser, router, all right? And you'll notice that when I do that, it gives me an error because it wants an ending browser router tag. That makes sense? All right, and you'll notice that this is no longer grayed out right here because I now have browser router. That's good. So that's the first thing. So inside of the browser router, we're going to use the word switch. All right, and again, I'm getting an error, and I'm getting that error because it's looking for an ending switch tag. So you'll notice again, I have no more errors. All right? Now, the problem with this, as it currently is, there's really no problem with it. But what we want the system to know is when we hit our /, remember what / is? That's the root. That when we hit the root, this is the page we want to have show. Does that make sense to everyone? Right now, we've only been working with 1 page in all of our React apps. All right? Now we're working with multiple pages, and since we are working with multiple pages, all right, we've got to have some way to differentiate in here. It's not exactly doing routing, but it sort of is, for lack of better words. All right, so I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm just going to replace it with this. Route path equal / and then component equal movie list. And I think it needs that. All right? That should be everything. That should be everything. All right? Now, in English, this is how we're doing our routing using the React Router DOM. This is how we're doing our routing. So we're telling it to switch, for lack of better words, based on what the URL is going to be. And we're saying if it's just a /, so if we're at home, what you should be rendering is the component that's called movie list. And that movie list has to have been brought in like we already did. All right? Now, what we want to be able to do is just to make sure this is going to work, and when we first do it, it's not going to work, but we're going to make a simple change and then it will work, is we want to go over now, let's do a file save, all right? And then let's go over to the other page, the movie details page, which currently has, as you know, nothing in it. All right? So we're going to start putting some stuff in it. All right? And I don't know if I'm going to need to import anything, but I'm just going to hit enter a couple times, so I'm down to line 3. And I'm going to put in here function, movie, it's got to be called movie details, right? Because that's the name of the file. All right, movie details. And I'm going to just put a return in here. And we'll change this around later. I'm not worried about it. Whoops, I'm sorry, there's got to be a paren. I don't know why I keep hitting the wrong key. All right, get rid of that curly. We don't want to, okay. So we want to return, for now I'm just going to make an H1, and it's going to say movie details page. You can have it say whatever in the heck you want it to say. You'll notice I spelled function wrong. All right, so that's now fixed. And of course, at the bottom, we have to do our export, default, movie details. Again, to my knowledge, I have no semicolons in here yet. All right? Now, that's all fine and dandy. I'm going to do a file save. All right? Right now, our program has absolutely no knowledge of this. This is in an island, for lack of better words, into and of itself. So we're going to change that right now. I'd like you to go back to index right here. And the easiest way to do this, you can do it any way you want. I don't know how much you like to type, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to just copy that, and I'm going to make some changes to this. All right? So I put in another line here, and I want this to say details. All right? And in here, instead of movie list, I want this to be movie details. Now, we're going to run this in a minute, and it's not going to work, and I want to explain why. All right? So I'm going to save this. So what we're saying here is if we just go to slash, you should bring up this page. If we go to slash details, you should bring up this page. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. So I'm going to do a file save, and I don't think it's going to work. But with a real simple fix, it should then. So let's see. Is this still running? Yes, it is. So I'm going to come back up to here, all right, and I'm going to come in here, and now I'm going to put in here, I saved this before just so I had something. So this is a thing for a Batman movie, okay? So in other words, I want to be able to grab, oh, I thought I did save it. Maybe I didn't. All right, I'll tell you what, I'll grab it from here. So let's see, I want this somewhere in here. Somebody help me. There should be an ID in here, right? I don't see one. Great. All right. Well, it's probably not going to matter one way or the other, but I want to come in here and I want to say details. Does that make sense? And in an ideal world, when I hit enter now, it's going to go to the details page, and it don't do nothing. Because what happens is, it's in here, and as soon as it sees this, it says it matched. All right? So what we want to say in here is before the word path, all right, in here, we want to say exact. So that means only if it's exactly that, match it. All right? So I'm going to save that. I'm going to go and make sure I didn't break anything. I didn't. That's good. I'm going to go back to the run. And again, with details up right here, I'm just going to hit enter. And notice I've changed pages. You can, and that's all. That's fine and dandy. Except I don't want to pass the word details in there. I want to pass an ID in there. Does that make sense? I want to pass an actual living movie ID. All right? This will be the page that, again, we're going to do a minimal amount of formatting on, but you're going to do a lot of formatting on. All right? Now, what I did also, just so you know, is I removed this, but I'm going to leave it there for now. So that is actually there, because right now on my details, I don't have a thing saying it's the details page. Again, this is going to become your app, so you do whatever you want to do with it. All right. So what we want to do then, and it won't make sense probably for a little bit, but it'll make sense in a couple minutes. Remember how when we were working with Postman and some of these other things, we would put a colon there and we'd say this? Remember that? We want to do something similar to that. So we're going to put a colon in there, but we want to say IMDb ID. That's our Internet Movie Database ID. Every single record that we go through is going to have one of those. So every movie has got its own ID. All right?
I have a question. On the IMDb, is it supposed to be the OMDB one we're using? Or?
Oh, whatever the one is we're using. What is it, OM? Let's see what it says. I'll tell you what, let's just do that. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to try at least to comment that out. It is OMDB? All right, I'll take your word for it. Then I screwed up. All right? Okay. There? Is that right? Okay. OMDB, not IMDb. Okay. Now, component equals, no, it doesn't like this. What is wrong?
The starting tag.
What's that?
The starting area before route path.
Wait, hold on. All right.
Yeah, whenever starting a tag, where's ending your tag?
The route.
Right here.
Right
I'm
before.
missing the beginning tag. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Now we've got to write some code here on our details page. Not here, but I'm going to do a file save here. We might even be done with this page now. All right? I didn't put that semicolon in. It got put in for me. All of these were put in by the system. So I have not added a semicolon. All right? But I'm going to go back to the details page. I think you would all agree there's not much in here right now. All right? So we're going to start adding some stuff right now. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do an import at the top of the page. And we're going to bring in both React and we're going to bring in use effect. And we're bringing those in from React. All right? So the code that we will want to add will be before the return statement. So I'm going to hit enter a couple times here and go back to here. All right? Eventually, we're going to add more stuff here. And this is, I'm going to add 3 or 4 things. You're going to modify those things to make it your page. All right? Okay. So for right now, we have to say, okay, we're doing use effect. And in this use effect, in other words, what do we want to have happen? Okay, and that's what we're going to put in there. I've got a question for you. Does anybody remember when we talked about the differences between function-based components and class-based components? When you want to bring in things to a function-based component, there's a special word that you use. Does anybody remember that word?
No.
It's up here, and it is the word props. All right? That means that there are things that we will want to pass into this. All right, so we are bringing in props, properties, whatever you want to call it. All right? And what we want to bring in is that ID. All right? So I'm going to say here const omdb ID equals, and it's props dot match, you got to spell match right, dot params dot omdb ID. All right? And that's fine. So that's going to bring it into this routine. All right? But what we want to be able to do is extract the details for that particular movie. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, so I'm going to get rid of that semicolon because I said I wasn't going to use them. All right, and I called mine extract movie details by ID. And I passed in that ID that we just did. I passed that into it. Now, we haven't written that yet, so if we attempt to run this program, we're going to get an error. That should make sense to everyone by now. Right. All right. So let's write that routine right now. Okay? So const extract movie details by ID equal, again, we don't have to call it, but I just call it the same thing. OMDB ID. Okay? All right. So I called it that. In both of them. I'm not changing it, I'm not modifying it, I'm just using it. All right? So in here, kind of like what we did before, in that I'm going to say const movie details URL equal, and I'm going to put in backticks again and have another one of these http://www.omdbapi.com, etc. But the other one was an S for a search. This is going to be an I for an information, for lack of better words. All right? So we're going to say here, not after the question mark, we're going to say I equals. And what we're going to pass into that is, whoops, with the dollar sign, what we're going to pass into that is the OMDB ID, all right, and our API key. Again, use your API key, please, not mine. All right. After we do that, we can now do another fetch. And we're going to pass into fetch movies detail URL. And again, as mentioned previously, that's going to return a promise. All right? So, dot then, going to go very similar to what we did before. All right? Response.json. And then result, and again, you can call that whatever you want, that's just a common name, so. And I'm going to put in here, for now at least, just console.log of the result. So for right now, I just want to log it. That's typically a good thing to do, rather than just throwing something out there. I can check on it and make sure, ideally at least, that it's going to look the way that I want it to look. All right?
You spelled the first response wrong.
You're right, I left an E off. Thank you. There we go. All right. Oh, and this should be a lower R. So that's why that's gray too. Okay, So I'm going to, has everybody got that? I'm going to now save it. I'm going to check to make sure I didn't break anything. I didn't. It still says compiled successfully. All right, I'm going to come back here just like we did before. All right, so I'm going to come back out here. And it doesn't like something, it looks like. Oh, there it is. All right, so I'm going to go back to my page here. Again, I'll just try Harry Potter. And I'll click search. I'm going to come back into here, and I'm going to inspect. All right, and I should be able to go over to my console. All right, we're going to get rid of that error in just a minute, okay? It says check the render method of movie list. So there are things in here right now, it's not broken, but it doesn't like. All right? We should be able to fix all those as we go on. You can see that the program itself is still working. Now, we have no way right now. What we want to do is we want to put in a hyperlink right here that we're going to turn into a button, and it'll say movie details. So each one of these will now have a hyperlink button that says movie details. And when you click any one of them, it'll bring up the details for that one. Does what I say make sense? All right, that's what we want to have happen. And while we're doing that, we'll get rid of this stupid warning too. All right, I shouldn't say it's stupid, but that warning. All right. Okay. So then, continuing on. All right. What we're going to do is in our movie details page right here at the top, underneath this first import, we're going to add another one. We're going to import something that's called Nav Link. All right. And we are importing Nav Link. All right. We are importing Nav Link from React, router, DOM. All right? What Nav Link is, for lack of better words, when we first create it, it's going to look just like a hyperlink. All right? And that's fine. But then we are going to add a button attribute to it, so we will turn it into a button. You will eventually style that any way you want. You already know using Bootstrap that you can change colors on your buttons, sizes on your buttons, etc. All right? Okay. So, in here, let's see, what do we have? Yep, movie details. Okay. Okay. We don't want the hyperlink to be on here. This is our details page. We want that hyperlink to be on our main page. So we're going to switch back to the movie list.js page right here. All right. And right under this D3, or H3 I should say, that we just put in, right under this thing, we're going to add something else. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to put a little space in here. You don't have to do that. All right. But I just put in a little space. And we're going to put in this Nav Link. And again, it's not my syntax, it's just the way that it's set up. So we're going to say 2 equals Now, we're not done yet, so hold on a second. E-L-I-N-K, and I can already tell that I'm missing something, so what am I missing here? And that shouldn't... Okay, that backtick should be here. Why are there 2 of them? I don't know it, but there are. And I'm missing now a curly. There we go. All right. So what are we saying? When we go to this link, if you don't look up on the screen here, what we're saying is our home / followed by the ID. Does that make sense? Now, if we did it right now, it would look just like a hyperlink, which is okay, but that's kind of ugly. So we can come in here, and this is what we're going to do, and you can come in here and you can say button. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to say movie details. That's just going to be the name on the button. Okay. All right. And the other thing is, if you remember, like I said, that we get that warning all the time. Okay? So, in our movies.map here, it's a simple change. You may remember this from when we watched those Scrimba videos. You may not. But what we need to put in here is we need a key. And it doesn't have one right now. So it doesn't know one record from the other. So in this div, we say key equals, all right, and in curlies, we put movie.omdb ID. That should get rid of that error. So I'm going to save this. I'll give you seconds. I want to make sure everybody is caught up. All right, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back and look and make sure I didn't break anything. Says nav link is not defined. Well, I'm going to go look at that to double check. So it says in line 29. All right. What that probably means is, notice we put the nav link. I had you put it in here. I guess I had you put it in the wrong file. So let's take it out of movie details and put it into movie list. That should get rid of that. Warned you at the beginning of class. That wasn't my first error. Wouldn't be my last one. All right, so now when I come in here and I go back to my run right now, notice what I have. See the movie details? See that? I now have details for each thing. We haven't told it what to print yet. We're going to do that in just a second. But the point is, we now have for each one of these, notice what happened. Look on the screen when okay, so I come in here and I put in, I don't know, you were saying it before, so Spider-Man. And I click search. All right, right now we haven't told it what to print. So it is smart enough to know that when I click movie details, look what page it goes to. All right? Okay, so we're going to fill that out right now, or in just a second at least. So we want to print out the info details on this page. All right. So right now, believe it or not, we actually have a working app. It still has some issues, but we have a working app in here right now. Okay, so we're going to go back into here, and in our movie details page that we're using in here, right now, we're using state, but we not only want to use state, we also want to use effect. And we're going to write that routine in just a second. All right? Now, when you look in here, am I in the right? No, I'm sorry. I thought I was on the movie details page. I'm not. So I don't think we need that here. We do need that on the movie details page, though. All right. So we've got use effect, and we also need use state. So make sure you're on the movie details page. I'm not saying that this, I don't know if anybody's going to be happier than me when we're told they don't have to worry about masks anymore, etc. All right. And then I can hopefully start seeing again. So we put that in right there. All right. As of right now, we're not really doing anything with state because we just added it. So we're going to start using state right now. Okay? So we've got use state, that's good. And we're going to come in, and before our use effect, I'm going to hit enter twice, and I'm going to come in right there, and I'm going to add some state. And, well, notice what this routine is called, this function. It's called movie details, right? So here's a surprise. I call this movie details. So I said here const, and then in brackets, because it's an array, movie details. And remember, when you call it something, you say set with the same name. Again, that's the convention, is to do it like that. All right? And I'm going to set that equal to use state. It's an object, and it's empty. So there is absolutely nothing in there right now. All right? So, let me know when you, everybody got that? All right. I'm going to come down here where I've got my console.log of the result. And for now, at least, I'm just going to comment it out. You can remove it. You can leave it. It doesn't matter. All right? But I'm going to change that so it has in there set movie details and the result. All right? Now, what can happen when you do this? You may or may not remember this, again, from the tape he showed it, and we've talked about it a little bit in class. But right now, this thing is going to try to run repeatedly. And if we don't make a couple changes, what may end up happening eventually is you start getting flicker, and it looks really, really bad. All right? So what do we do to try to alleviate that flicker? Is right in here. We come into here. I'm on by the use effect. All right, so that thing that we've got in there in the use effect, I'm going to put in a comma and bracket, bracket. And what that means is just run it once. Don't continue to run it and run it and run it and run it and run it. All right? All right. Is everybody caught up? Okay. Now, let's go down to here. because this is what we have in here right now. Okay, again, you are going to decide what else gets added. For right now, I'm going to put in 3 or 4 things. You can change it and put in anything in the world that's in there that you want to or need to put in. That's totally fine. But I'm going to come in here and put in the image. So source equal, like we did before. Now it's movie details. So movie details dot poster. Looks like I've got something wrong here. We'll fix it. I'm not worried about it at all. It'll be fixed in a minute. So source equals that. All right. All right, so that's the first thing. Oh, also remember, talked about this before, so we don't get that warning. I am going to put an alt tag in here. So alt equal, again, movie poster. You can put anything in the world that you want or think should be put in there. Okay? Oh, you should all know what the error is. I got to put this in a div, don't I? I'm attempting to return more than one thing. So we'll fix that right now. Div. Notice how everything basically went. Now it's all okay. All right. Let's tab that over and tab that back. There we go. All right. Now, just because I don't want it to look exactly like the other page, because right now it would, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put it in H5 and I'm going to say title. All right, that's just text. And then I'm going to put in here movie details dot title with a big T. All right. Oops, that's got to end the curly brace. And then I'm going to put in a couple paragraphs. Again, you can change this any way you want. Plot, and this will be movie details dot plot. And then finally, actors. And this is movie details dot actors. You know, in fact, after I looked at it, I thought you don't normally call them actors. You typically say cast. Doesn't really matter. You can say actors, you can say cast. Who cares? It's not really that big of a thing one way or the other. All right? So I'm going to save this now. I don't think I have any errors. All right, it's telling me React Hook has a missing dependency. Props.match either included or remove the dependency array. Okay, well hopefully that's a warning. So hopefully that's going to resolve itself when we finish this up. But I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back again to my program. I'm again going to try just Harry Potter. Click search. There's my movies. I'm going to click details. No, doesn't like something. And I had this before. I'm trying to remember what the problem was. I'll figure it out. All right? Now, if yours doesn't work, don't worry about it. We'll go back and look at the code. All right? The answer is always in the code. I'm missing something in my code right now. So I'll have to go back and double check my steps. All right? Now, we haven't been going that long, only about 45 minutes, but I want to fix this before we go on. So let's take a short break. It's 1:56. Let's take a break till 2:05, please. We'll come back. We don't have that much more to do, and we'll hopefully finish this up. But before we do, let's think about, we still have some problems, just so you know. So what are the problems? Well, notice when I click back, all my movies are gone. I don't want that, because what if that wasn't the Harry Potter movie I meant to check. I meant to check a different one. Well, now I got to type in Harry Potter again. That's not a terrible thing, but why not make it as easy as possible? Also, could we have a clear button here? All right. And when we have the clear button, we want everything that's in here to be removed. All right. And that's actually pretty simple. Now, one last thing before we take the break. What we want to be able to do is we want to be able to know what search term we're working with. We want to save it, but we haven't talked in here. I mean, that isn't worth creating a database for that term, all right? I mean, right now we don't even have a database in here. But what we are going to use, just so you see it, is we're going to use something that's built in that's called local storage. And as it says, when you work with local storage, it's key values. So here is an example of setting local storage. So you're setting last name to Smith. Here is an example of getting local storage. So there's set item when you want to set an item, get item when you want to get it. So we will be using set item and get item with our search term. All right? And is that a big thing? No, but I just wanted to mention that to you. All right? So I'm going to quickly look at my notes here and see where I think I may have screwed up. All right? And we'll pick it up then. It's now 1:58, so let's just make it, I'll make it 2:15. All right? It should give me plenty of time to figure out hopefully where my error is.